Target's naval commander of the Hamas is also killed in the attack. US pledges complete support to Israel. Blinken in Israel says the Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Reports suggest Israel launched attacks in the Damascus airport and the northern city of Aleppo in Syria. External Affairs Minister reviews Operation Ajay to repatriate Indian citizens from Israel. Fearless reporting by Team Republic from the war zone as missile strikes continue at the Gaza border. Two Muslim groups in India back the Modi government's stand on war, condemn the Hamas attacks. And in more news, the Delhi High Court refusing to confirm the death penalty to the convict Aris Khan in the Batla House encounter case, awarding life term instead. Hello and a very good evening. The show is called The Burning Question and I'm Deepthi Sachdeva. The one story that all of you have been talking about, have been literally glued to television screens and wonder how will that story impact you next, is about what's happening between Israel and Hamas right now. Remember, the entire attack now today is in its 6th day. Has there been any let up? The answer is no. Could there be an escalation? The answer is quite likely. Now, when we say escalation, what is it that could happen in the next few days to the next few weeks? Israel has made it very clear that they could be looking at an on-ground invasion against Gaza. If that happens, remember the casualty figures will again rise up. But is that the only focus? The focus is also on a lot of changing global world order. You have countries, particularly not just in West Asia, the Arab world and elsewhere, very keenly looking at what's going on. So how far can Israel go? What could happen in the next few weeks? Will we see some kind of a rapprochement? Saudi Arabia earlier, the Crown Prince has spoken to the counterpart in Iran, a country that many say possibly is behind the Hezbollah. He says we are trying to diffuse the situation. Could that happen? Lot of questions today. So what we'll do on this edition of The Burning Question is not just help you understand where does the conflict today stand in its 6th straight day, but we'll also answer those questions that are on top of your mind with a panel of experts from across the world that join us in just a moment. But first up, because we are talking of the 6th day of the conflict, so let's bring up the map here to help you understand what are we talking about and which are the areas that have been struck by Israel for now. Now this red bit that you see on your screens is Israel. The next image that you will see is also of Gaza and later of the West Bank. There has been, remember, a lot of conversation about the West Bank and the Gaza Strip for a long time. The West Bank is controlled by the PLO, that is the Palestinian Liberation Organization there, but right now we'll see a lot of action that will come down to the Gaza Strip. Now, on Saturday, you have seen an attack that many say is unprecedented, something that had not happened in a long time. The Hezbollah, which again is a terror outfit, was behind this. Now, on your screens, you're looking at Tel Aviv, Ashdod, and Zikr. These are places in yellow that you see on your screens that have earlier been hit, they have been bombarded. And like I said, we'll also in fact ask our team to bring in the Gaza Strip here. And that is from where you had seen the Hamas launching their first attack. And in fact, I'll just move aside so that you can have a better idea what I'm talking about. This is the Gaza Strip. And again, the points that you see in yellow are the points, ladies and gentlemen, that have been targeted. More than 200 targets per day. 200. This is what the IDF or the Israeli Defense Forces have spoken about. Sderot, the Gaza city there, Khan Yunis there, Rafah there. And the Gaza Strip, remember again, for those of you not very familiar, is just a patch that is about 41 kilometers. It is very, very densely populated, and that is the reason why the fear is that in case you have a ground invasion by Israel, this could lead to massive devastation. Massive devastation. There isn't much of scope for people to move. Now, when you're in the Gaza Strip, that is somewhere close to here, I'm just trying to show this to you on the map here. The next country adjacent to this is Egypt. And per day, just about 400 people, 400 refugees from the Gaza Strip can move into Egypt. Israel already has said, and in fact it has warned, that all Palestinians must leave the Gaza Strip. Will that happen or not? We do not know. But like I said, again, this is an evolving situation. You have seen a lot of unfolding events by the minute. So this is just to help you understand the placement, the geography, also why this entire area, the West Asia region right now, is looking at so much of chaos. And let's, in fact, before we get in our panel of guests with us, do you know what is a kibbutz? Now, kibbutz, for those of you not very familiar, but you might have heard that word in the headlines for the last many days. In Hebrew, it actually means civilization, it means gathering, it means a group of people. Now, this again is very particular to Israel. There is a lot of agriculture, farming, that is the thrust. These are areas far away from the cities where you have habitation, you have people living very, very peacefully. But one of these settlements came under attack on Saturday by the Hamas terror group. What we saw next was utter devastation. We've seen piles and piles of dead bodies. We've seen the stench of death. Let's first bring up the entire story for you that again is a grim reminder of the cost that any kind of war brings with it. The casualties continue to rise by the moment. Israel has actually said today that we will ensure that Gaza becomes a tent city. The story first up, and then we take it across to our panel of guests joining us in just a moment.
Smell of rotting bodies. Dozens of dead bodies in white plastic bags seen stacked on a lawn. A sight of complete devastation. These are the bodies of the victims belonging to Kibbutz Be'eri. Kibbutz Be'eri is a farming community near Israel's border with the Gaza Strip that was one of the last communities to be freed from Hamas terrorists. An Israeli soldier recalled his horrendous ordeal while clearing the site.
Lunch, missiles, etc., and go fight with the protection and the security group of the kibbutz people that capture, and their hand was blocked, and someone kills them. Children in the same room, then someone come and kills them all. 15 girls and teenagers that put in the same room, 300 grenades, and this over. This is a massacre. It's pogrom.
We will hit Gaza. We will hit Hamas, was the only sentiment following through the minds of Israeli soldiers.
We will hit Gaza. We will hit the Hamas. We will destroy. But we have our value and our culture.
Army officers compare the trauma of the carnage in the kibbutz of Be'eri for Israel to that of 9/11 for America. Agency report, Republic TV.
So what possibly could happen in the next few days to the next few weeks is a question again that all of you have been asking, and to answer that question, and how does this change the geopolitical world order? Let's quickly say good evening to our panel of guests joining us. Neta Bar is a journalist live from Tel Aviv. Neta, we hope you are safe, you're doing well, and thank you for taking out time to be able to speak to us. Also from Virginia, we have Rich Aldzin, retired colonel in the US Army, the former senior advisor at the State Department and senior fellow at the Jamestown Foundation. From England, it's good to have Michael Tracy, who's also a journalist, on the show. From Beijing this evening, we have Aina Tangan, who's a political affairs commentator, and from Islamabad, Raja Faisal, who's a journalist. Good evening to all of you gentlemen, and with your permission, I quickly want to take it across to Neta Bar, who's reporting Tel Aviv for us. Neta, I want you to first up begin by telling us what really is happening right now where you are. What is it that you have seen? What can you tell us? People are asking, is the situation getting any better? Or we have seen a complete escalation over the last few hours. Neta.
Over the few hours, there's no complete escalation. There's a lot of tension. Israel is still licking its wounds from a horrendously cruel attack on the southwestern border. There are almost 800 civilians murdered, 200 soldiers killed, a few kibbutzim, villages destroyed. The city of Sderot suffered immensely. We've seen slaughter in a way that we haven't seen in Israel, I think, ever. What's happening now is that the Israeli army is at the border region. It's pulling its forces together in order to be prepared for a large ground assault on the Gaza Strip. The Air Force is pounding Hamas's targets inside the Strip itself. We've seen a lot of Palestinians killed, I guess many civilians as well. Very, very brutal fighting. And it seems to be poised to get even more tense as Israel will try to remove Hamas's control from the Gaza Strip.
Okay, and Neta, I want to ask you another question before I take it across to other panel of guests. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the fact that this has been a huge intel failure. A country as powerful as Israel, with its surveillance system, with the Iron Dome and a lot of other things, particularly at the borders, we've seen that being infiltrated, being breached. Now, are there questions being raised domestically about the circumstances behind this? I mean, was this a complacency, or what really explains what happened, Neta?
The most common phrase that we hear now in Israel is after the war, which means that after the war, the reckoning will come. People will be asking the hard questions. People will lose their jobs. There will be a sort of investigative committee. We have to assume there was a failure. It's a big failure. It's the most, the biggest military failure and intelligence failure in Israel since the Yom Kippur War 50 years ago. And there will definitely be a reckoning within the Israeli society and political system after this is over, especially within the military itself. We don't know how it's going to look like. We don't know what the findings will be. But right now there is a war, and in Israel we tend to try and win wars and not squabble with each other. So after the war, the reckoning will start.
Okay, so Neta says that's a question that's going to be dealt with after the war. And I think that's a fair point, Neta. And before I get in Michael, Einar and Raja into this conversation, Rich, to you, how do you see it from where you are? I mean, there clearly have to be questions that will be raised, but looking at the escalation that we have seen in the past few hours, looking at what we've heard from Benjamin Netanyahu, who actually said that Gaza is going to become a tent city. That's what the IDF has said. Now, how far, Rich, do you believe that Israel can really go?
Well, it's a good question, and good to be with you and the other panelists. So the Herzi Halevi, the chief of the IDF staff, also said today that things in Gaza will never be the same. And I don't know about tent city. I think there are portions of Gaza, there's at least 4 or 5 big urban areas in Gaza in which you have this network or warren of buildings with tunnels beneath them. I think the two operational tasks that Israel has to do is to restore control over the border between Gaza and Egypt. So that's what they used to be referred to as the Philadelphia corridor. And then they need to make sure that in these big urban areas, such as Khan Yunis and Gaza City, that they reduce that network of tunnels. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of buildings destroyed. They're I think, going to try to do that without a permanent movement of population, although clearly some people have already fled to Egypt. There have been some civilian casualties. It's impossible to do these tasks probably without some degree of civilian casualties. But with the scale of destruction that Israel has seen, I think that will be within their moral calculus acceptable. Now, with every war Israel has, we see this dynamic where after it gets hit, it hits back. And while it hits back, there's a clock ticking before the United States and Europe, the Arab world, other neighbors find their actions to be too much. So that's what we're going to be looking at here is as Israel gathers its forces to do these operational tasks. And by the way, keeps an eye on Lebanon and Damascus, where the Iranians are also sending more weapons. There will be a clock ticking for how long they can do a ground up. I don't think it'll be leveled. I don't think all of Gaza will be a tent city, but the engineering project of reducing these urban areas and the tunnels is gonna be a significant change in the life of most Gazans.
Oh yes, I think you make an important point there, Rich. And Michael, why don't you come in and push that point a little further? Ground invasion, many say that is likely, but could that happen? I mean, can that really take place with the kind of devastation that we might just see in the Gaza Strip that is so densely populated?
Well, the talking point that's being repeated over and over again, particularly in U.S. media, is that this is akin to Israel's 9/11, except proportionally even worse. And I don't know if you recall, but after 9/11, the United States invaded and occupied Afghanistan and Iraq, instituted a worldwide torture and mass surveillance regime, and abrogated civil liberties across the board. So if that's what we can anticipate being in store with regard to Israel, with the United States giving its full endorsement to such endeavors, then it probably won't be a very pretty picture. And it does seem akin, actually, to the aftermath of 9/11 in that there's a total cessation of rational thought going on. So just in a political sense, last night you had Ron DeSantis, the Republican presidential candidate, criticizing Donald Trump for allegedly being in favor of Hezbollah attacking Israel, which is obviously and patently absurd. But in the hysterical aftermath of an event like this, all rational thought seems to go by the wayside, and politicians in the United States and the UK are lining up behind one another to chant, stand with Israel's right to self-defense, switching off critical faculties. And then when it blows back in a couple of years, because we entered into a 9/11 style fervor, maybe they'll look back on this with a sense of regret. But as of now, it seems like they're just going for the emotionally charged, overwrought reaction and competing with one another for how aggressive and flamboyant they can be.
Okay, and you would agree, Michael, somewhere, before I take it to Ainar and to Raja, that the US somehow was taking the entire Middle East, the West Asia region for granted. It actually believed that it's been able to make that largely peaceful. You mentioned, you alluded towards the Abraham Accord, and there was a lot of conversation, a lot of focus on how US has been trying to broker another peace deal right now, Saudi Arabia, Israel, but clearly a lot of things have changed between then and now. Raja, before Michael responds to that question, would you begin with a condemnation against the Hamas terror group by what has happened? We haven't seen much of a vociferous posturing by Pakistan at all. Now, there are a lot of questions and a lot of concerns also about how countries like China, Pakistan, and a lot of other countries are still very muted in their response, Raja.
Deputy, I'll start with the condemnation of all of the innocent souls that have, been victims of this war, and not just the 3 or 4 days of the war. I would call it since 1947, since the conflict has started, and I think that's how it should be. And this is what humanity requires from us. every human should be treated equally. And if we talk about Hamas is just a group, a tiny group within, of course, the Palestinians who resort to guns, who believe that guns are the only ways that can give them, a liberation from the Israelis. To me, I think there are better forces within Palestinians, voices within Palestinians. I'm talking about PLO. I'm talking about obviously West Bank. Population at large, they believe in peaceful solutions and they believe in dialogue. And I think dialogue should be given a time. Of course, we know that the dialogues has been taking place in past as well. I'm talking about Oslo Accord. I think Oslo Accord should have been respected from all of the sides, including Israel. But unfortunately, Israel is obviously the side that has never stopped making settlements. And then Israel is a country that has
my original plan was not to interrupt any of our guests because this isn't a debate. It just has to be a conversation because we have to be equally concerned about what has happened. Do you believe what happened on Saturday against Israel is barbaric? This is a thoughtless war. This is a provocation? Or are you pro-Hamas?
This doesn't make me pro-Hamas. I'm a journalist who believe in right news, not the fake news. If there is a fake news, of course, I would call it a fake news. I am seeing all of the footages coming out from there. And yes, there are reliable sources which I am believing in. But if there are unreliable sources, as there were statements coming from President Biden as well, I took it seriously. But then later on, I was, I went through another statement coming out from White House, which said that, of course, they don't have any proof for whatever the claims were made by President Biden. Same is the case with.
No, I don't know. Are you saying the attack is a fake news? I mean, I don't understand. And sorry, I don't want to even try to attempt to wrap my head around that right now. Let me get an Einar into this conversation.
Deputy,
Einar, to you before we lose the link.
Deputy, when I come across
Raja, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you. Let me also see how. Let me also see how Einar wants to respond to this conversation. Einar, yes. Okay, Raja, please. We can agree to listen to each one. We can agree to listen to each one. That's the least that we can do. That's the least that we can do, at least tonight. Spare a thought for people who are homeless today. Spare a thought for people who are sleeping, for little kids who've lost their lives, for no fault of theirs. Please. Einar, what do you think? What do you think Israel should be doing right now? Do you believe Israel must go out for the offensive, as Benjamin Netanyahu has actually said? And do you believe that Hamas is a terror group? It should be wiped out?
Well, the idea that you're going to wipe out a group that is embedded in one of the most densely populated areas with over 2 million people, 1 million of whom are under the age of 18, there are going to be deaths. I'm slightly appalled that some of our other commentators are just kind of looking at this as statistics and numbers. We're all horrified by the violence that has occurred. There are no heroes here, only villains and victims. I mean, there's blame on Israel in terms of, Netanyahu showing up at the United Nations saying that he was, in essence, showing maps where he was going to get rid of the West Bank, that he was going to ignore the two-state solution that Israel agreed to. But it doesn't justify the kind of senseless death and violence that has happened. But this idea that you stand for one side or another side is a false narrative. It is a false dichotomy. The switch is not on or off. The issue here is diplomacy. This is not going to be settled by bullets. If they go into Gaza, if they don't kill everybody, how many of those children are going to grow up? What are they going to think? What is their reaction going to be?
Einar, because I do have limited time and I will give the last word to Neta. Let me ask you one question, and I just have about 30 seconds for your response. What do you think Israel should do right now? It should just wait, for more barrage of rockets to come in from the Hamas terror group? What should it do?
As a long supporter of the two-state solution and the peace process in Israel, personally, I think Israel has no choice now but to clear a way for a different sort of regime within the Gaza Strip. And in order to do so, it must enter its forces into the Gaza Strip and change that regime by force. And it saddens me, and I'm horrified to think of what the people of Gaza are going to go through. But this cannot go any further like this. Netanyahu's government tried for at least a decade to form a sort of give and take relationship with Hamas. This has proven to be impossible. Hamas controls the Gaza Strip. It is not a tiny group within the Gaza Strip. It is the regime there. And it has proven to be a part of Iran's ploy to actually control the Middle East and basically eradicate Israel within the next few years or decade or so. And Israel cannot afford it anymore. And I'm not saying this not with some barbarous zeal, and I'm not happy about it in any way, but this seems to be the only solution standing for Israel right now. And I hope that the world will allow Israel to act, and I hope that the government of Israel and its army will do the most humane job possible in eradicating Hamas's regime within the Gaza Strip. And I hope that the world will take part in the building of a new regime, a new Palestinian government within the Gaza Strip after the war. And I hope the world will join the huge economic effort that will have to take place in order to bring back the Gaza Strip to a normal economical and social existence after the war.
You're disgusting.
Now we're hearing about a humane invasion,
Okay,
and this
Nita,
is, by the way, what the United States granting its endorsement to. So, just wait.
Yes, quickly, Michael, you want to say something?
Within the
Sure. He wants to say that Hamas should stay in control of the Gaza Strip. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, in Israel today, meeting with Netanyahu, invoking the Holocaust and saying,
We don't need Hamas apologies.
I think we can all agree to disagree. That's fine, but terrorism is terrorism. Raja and Einar, I think we must remember and keep these people in our thoughts and prayers today. Neta has been very brave. He's put out that entire thought of hope, of reconciliation. Will that happen or not? We do not know, Neta, but thank you so much for joining us, and all gentlemen also for your perspective on this big story that's unfolding by the minute. We are at Republic. We'll continue with our non-stop rolling coverage. Thank you so much for joining us.
QS and THE, the world's foremost university rankings organizations, have ranked Amity amongst the top 3% universities globally, making it among the very few Indian universities to be included in both rankings. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
The rockets and the artillery is concerned, yes, that has constantly been fired, but it is important to know that it has also been destroyed. All the things has been taken care of, and we have been seeing right now rockets that was fired from Hamas has been intercepted by Israeli forces. As per the intelligence, it has been said that there were Hamas terrorists who tried to enter the city, after which they have came inside, and now IDF forces is on their move. We are just near 21 kilometers from the Gaza city.
And the world need to know, you need to support Israel, you need to call your leadership, need to come.
Okay, there are the missile that has been fired, as we can see. They have been going to a safer zone is what we see. There are more missiles that has been fired. We're also just going to the safer location. Okay, see, we can see here the visuals are on your screen where the missile has been fired from the Hamas terrorist, and it is continuously been fired where the people have been taken to the safer place.
घरों से लोग जो हैं वो आप देखेंगे तो निकल गए हैं कि इजराइल का एयर डोम सिस्टम जो है वो इस वक्त एक्टिवेट हो गया है। आप देखिए ये इस वक्त जो है फायरिंग जो है वो यहाँ पर हो रही है। यहाँ पे हमें कहा गया है कि यहाँ पे नीचे हो जाए। मैं विजय सुरेंद्र से कहूँगा कि वो नीचे हो जाए। और वो देखिए आप हमारे सिर के ऊपर से लगातार जो है मिसाइल्स जा रही हैं। ये सबसे बड़ा हमला जो है वो हुआ है। आप देखिए बिल्कुल पास में जो है वो यहाँ पे मिसाइल्स गिरी है। लगातार जो है मिसाइल्स यहाँ पर लैंड हो रही है। आर्टिलरी का इस्तेमाल भी यहाँ पर किया गया है। The massive destruction that has taken place here in the central Tel Aviv. All the residentials, they have been asked to vacate this area. No one is inside.
Republic is with the Israeli forces. Israeli forces was clearly mentioned. They are going to retaliate and they are completely ready now, as we can see.
Hamas target of significant value that has been neutralized over the last 24 hours.
There have been several. We've been able to neutralize several launching sites from where they've been launching rockets, weapons caches where they store rockets and other types of weapons.
Artillery is concerned, yes, that has constantly been fired, but what is important to know that it has also been destroyed. All the things has been taken care of, and we have been seeing right now rockets that was fired from Hamas has been intercepted by Israeli forces. As per the intelligence, it has been said that there were Hamas terrorists who tried to enter the city, after which they have came inside, and now IDF forces is on their move. We are just standing at 21 kilometers from the Gaza city.
Trending burning question, powered by Reva University. Century Ply Laminates, co-powered by Acco Insurance.
Hello and welcome. You watching the Trending Burning Question with me, Shabin Sen. Ladies and gentlemen, on Saturday morning around 6:30, when Hamas terrorists infiltrated into Israel, one place that was targeted where thousands of people were present was during a music festival. Thousands were dancing to trance music just next to a Buddha statue, when the first sound of the rocket that was launched from Gaza was heard by those who were participating in the music festival. But little did they have an idea that it was just not yet another rocket that was launched from Gaza, but this time the plan was completely different. The Hamas wanted to carry out a massacre, and that's exactly what happened in the next few hours when Hamas terrorists opened fire at those who were present at the music festival. In fact, some had to jump off a cliff only to run away from the terrorists, who then started taking people hostage. What you see right now on your screens are those images coming in from the music festival, and it then turns out over the last few days that several have been taken hostage. Tonight, over the next few minutes, we'll take you to family members who are now speaking to international media, hoping to drum up some support, hoping that their loved ones would return. Joining us on this broadcast is two very special guests. We have Tomar Shalom, father of Noam Shalom, who's been missing since Saturdays, as I understand, and Ohad Haral, who's the brother-in-law of Sharona. First, let me come to you, Tomar Shalom, with regards to what we are witnessing right now. I've come across various stories, reports that are now coming in that those who were present at the music festival, many have been taken as hostages. I want to understand from you, over the last few days, the multiple attempts that your family members have been making to bring back your daughter. What has been the response like? What is it that you know so far?
Actually, I don't know so much so far. I know that I got the phone call from my daughter at the Saturday morning. It was a video call out of an ambulance that was in that field just near this peace festival, and my daughter, she was really afraid and shaking and crying, and I told her I was in shock, but I told her. She told me that there was shooting around, and I told her, baby, it will be okay, no worry. Like, these things are finished quickly. I'm sure that you're okay. And she told me I don't have so much batteries, so I told her just stay safe. Everything is gonna be good. And then she wrote me like, father and mother, I don't know what's gonna happen. Just know that I love you very, very much. Whatever happened. That was the last time I heard from her. And actually, till this day, we haven't got any solid message or information about her, about where is she, about what happened to her, about what happened to the ambulance, what happened to her friend that was with her in that peace festival.
Tomar, I know it must be extremely difficult, especially when you have absolutely no idea about the whereabouts of your own daughter. I believe that she was also with her friends who were present there. Is there any idea that you have with regards to what really happened to her friends? Any reports that you've come across? Because there are multiple testimonies that are now doing the round that you've had the IDF coming in much later, because obviously it wasn't easy even for the IDF to reach on the spot and to perhaps carry on with a counter-offensive. Is there anything that you've heard from the family members of your daughter's friends?
Look, all these things, people like treat it or call it a war. This is not a war. This is crime against humanity. This is not a normal war. To take innocent, young, beautiful people that dance in peace festivals and to take them as hostages in an enemy country as war prisoners. This is a crime against humanity. This is if we let this happen, if we normalize this, it will lead us to destruction of the free world as we know it. It won't stay like that. It belongs to all of us.
Tumar, one video that was doing the round was Hamas terrorists who were paragliding, and there is a video that we just saw in our newsroom was part of the music festival. Little did anyone in that music festival have an idea that this is not what it seems. It isn't the usual rockets being launched from Gaza, which most Israelis have now become very used to. And what many forget is perhaps the pressure that every Israeli has to face, keeping in mind that this is perhaps a usual routine. Rockets flying off from Gaza is nothing new as far as any Israeli is concerned.
Yeah, like paragliding, it wasn't before. All this thing is very weird. It's weird that this thing even happened, and it's very, very weird that still we don't have any solid information, and the solution is not visible. And the big question here again is what? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Tamar, I'll just come back to you. I'll request you to stay on with us because we also have Sharona's brother-in-law who's joining us, Ohad Harel. Ohad, thank you very much for joining us on this broadcast. And I must thank both of you. Because this isn't an easy moment for any one of you to be able to come up and perhaps narrate the ordeal that you all are going through. So I must thank you for coming out, speaking about what you're going through, hoping that the world will take notice of the fact that this brutality, this monstrosity of Hamas is exposed, hoping that your loved ones come back very soon. Ohad, first I want to know from you about your family members. Did you hear from any one of them? Is there any communication that you've heard from your authorities with regards to the whereabouts of your loved ones?
Until now, we didn't receive any message or any call from any formal, government or anything. I can tell you that last message I heard from my sister-in-law, Sharona. It was Saturday morning. Her husband is my brother. He called me saying that she just sent a message on WhatsApp. She wrote, "They are shooting at me and I'm hiding." So I went to my brother, I picked him up, and we drove all the way to the south of Israel. We get there very, very early, even before forces arrived. So all the roads were free to drive. And we saw lots of fire. All the both sides of the roads were burning with burning bushes and plants and everything. We heard shooting from everywhere. We saw the missiles on top of us, and we just drive fast. It was like a war zone. It was crazy, chaotic. Then we travel between the settlements next to the border, try to find people to ask them if they see Sharona. We saw many people going out from the music festival. They were traumatic. They couldn't even talk to us. And since then until now, it's been more than 5 days, and we are looking to get some, life sign about the people who have been hostage over there in Gaza. That's it.
Ohad, since you were there, you did manage to reach the very place where the music festival was going on. What is it that you saw? Because I believe that the brutality of the Hamas was out in the open for everyone to witness, because they opened fire indiscriminately. It turns out that there are reports that are now coming in that at least in some of the kibbutz in southern Israel, where they've massacred babies. In fact, your Prime Minister has also just put out pictures a short while back. But I want to understand from you, what is it that you witnessed the moment you reached the venue where the music festival was going on?
We arrived just afterwards, so we didn't see the brutality in front of us. We just saw the people after the effect. The only thing that we see is, while trying to get some information, we went to the Telegram or all kind of photos and videos on the net, and we saw the killing, and we saw the kidnapping, and we saw I can't even say and describe the craziness.
Tomer, I want to come to you because from the founding of the state back in 1948 to now, the pressure that an Israeli life basically faces of what's essentially happening in West Bank, or for that matter in Gaza, the pressure is something that cannot be undermined. And I believe that is one of the reasons why several of these music festivals that take place in Israel is hoping that Israeli youth do enjoy their life too. Does it really come across as a surprise, because there is a larger debate that is ongoing right now that you ought to differentiate between the Palestinians and the Hamas? Do you believe that such kind of an argument, such kind of a debate is perhaps an insult to those family members who are suffering because of the Hamas? They're suffering because of the fact that perhaps there have been some countries who have been backing the Hamas all this while.
I tell you the truth. When I think about politics, I put it on the side because it doesn't matter now. We are not talking about war between countries. We are not talking about army and army, or something like in Geneva agreement. We are talking about people who went for a festival, music festival. We are talking about couple of thousands of people that been, hundreds of them are already slaughtered, and all the rest are with post-trauma. Okay, if you want to make war, but leave the civilians alone. I'm not getting into politics. I'm not getting into anything like this. It doesn't matter. Bring the civilians back home. This is first.
Okay.
Yeah, I really feel like
Tomer Shalom, if I can also...
Yeah, please.
Tomer, I also wanted to bring you in this because I understand, this is not a time when we talk about politics, but unfortunately, the reality being this, that there is a larger debate that has emerged from what has happened right now, talking about the current situation in Gaza, where this entire talk that, look here, there is a law of war. That's what the United States of America is also pointing towards. But especially for someone like you, for someone like Ohad, who's at the receiving end, it isn't easy to have any sort of a rational debate. What is it that you would like to say?
I just like to say that, like Ohad said, this is not a war. This is crime against humanity again. And this is the time that all the world should come together and ask a big question. What kind of world we create for our children? This is very important to understand. If we normalize this cruelty, these crimes, like to take innocent kids and make them war prisoners, and to abuse and to do all these things that I cannot repeat even. This is the right place to hold hands together, to shout out loud, stop it, we won't allow it. All the people, if you are living in a free country, if you are the free world people, you should be threatened from that fact. Because if we normalize it, it will come in our back door. This is the time to come all the world, all the free world together and shout out, stop that crimes. These civilians, innocent young people should come back home now.
Well, in fact, as I end the program, I would like to take one final word from each one of you, Tumer as well as Ohad. I'm not very sure whether Ohad is still with us. But first to you, Tumer. Over 1 million of viewers who are watching this program tonight, would you like to make an appeal, keeping in mind that today Israel is being backed by several countries, but they also need to hear your voice, someone who still does not have an idea about where exactly is his daughter? What is it that you would like to tell everyone who's watching you tonight?
Look, our situation is traumatic. Our family is in a very difficult situation, and we have to raise ourselves each time. And I want that message to be delivered. And I think this world needs a lot of light. There's a lot of darkness in our world, and we should put light. And if you want to put light in dark places, you shouldn't let darkness turn off your inner light. Stay on, be together.
Thank you very much, Tumer. Tumer, thank you very much, as well as Ohad, for joining us on this broadcast. I would also like to take a moment to thank you once again for joining us in this difficult time. Praying for you, your family members, and everyone in Israel as we stand united against the fight against terrorism. Thank you very much.
Israel war exposes the divide in Muslim world. Indian Muslim groups support Modi government stand. No takers for terror sympathizers, debating tonight at 9 p.m.
QS and THE, the world's foremost university rankings organizations, have ranked Amity amongst the top 3% universities globally, making it among the very few Indian universities to be included in both rankings. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
And the world need to know, you need to support Israel, you need to call your leadership, need to come.
Okay, there are the missile that has been fired, as we can see. They have been going to a safer zone is what we see. There are more missiles that has been fired. We're also just going to the safer location. Okay, see, we can see here the visuals are on your screen where the missile has been fired from the Hamas terrorists, and it is continuously been fired where the people have been taken to the safer place.
This image tells you that somewhere down the line the Russian troops have crossed the line of war. And Russia needs to pay the price of the genocide that has been committed by them.